All right, so we're going from video today. All right, so 1824 toned canvas, stretch canvas, toned with a little blue, a little orange, white, and it's kind of in the flesh tone area. Most of the times it's in that value. It might be a little warmer than usual. I'm doing this character is actually from a little print that I shot years before digital even came in. And I think I was either in Santa Barbara. I think might have been in Santa Barbara, or it could have been, geez, I might have even been in Canada. A little bit of a difference there. But I guess that really doesn't matter. I always like the photo. So I had a blow up made. I took a little photo in and had them blown up to 11 by 17. And we're going to tackle it pretty much right now. So we're going to start with his head about here, his feet about down here. And let me see, we're going to go probably about that. And I'm guessing a lot of this is initial kind of sketch work, is a lot of guesswork. So I'm going to go there. Let's see, it's probably a little, the head's probably a little large. Now I have a tendency to draw the head too small. So let's see where we're going to end up here. About like that. Yeah, he's going to be too big. I can tell right now. As soon as I get that kind of laid in, I'll just wipe it off a little bit, right? Just because I know I'm off. So there's no sense in proceeding. So what you do, now that I have that down, I know that I can go probably a little bit smaller. Just gonna make it here, here, here. So I can keep his head more like that scale. Just gonna bring the shoulder up about here, and angle of his arm, once again, we're gonna keep it similar. And I have room. If I need to make his head larger or his feet lower, I can do that, because I've given myself that kind of luxury. Probably a little long on the arm there. Get the arm in there, bottom of his beard, the other shoulder, and the accordion. I just realized I painted an accordion player from France. Totally different. This is a summer accordion player, so to speak. Obviously it's warm. So we're going to go here, here. Let's get that arm up and arm over and wrist about here, wrist watch. And then the hand is going to go downward that way. Okay. So we just kind of get the movements in there. Body looks like it's about here. Sleeve. That angle looks to be correct. But he's going to be way too large. His feet are probably going to be down around here. Perfectly all right. I don't mind that at all. It's not going to hurt the piece. Okay, other finger. Let's see where that other hand is. I have this probably out a little far. Just going to make the hand more like in here, about. And maybe I might have been more correct the first time. Bottom of the accordion about here. I'm using a little liner to draw with. Don't always do that, but sometimes I do. The corner, this corner lines up right there, the back of his neck. And down here's bottom, and here. So you can see how much bigger he's going to be, which is perfectly, like I said, it's perfectly all right, because I gave a lot of room at the bottom for feet. And I kind of would like it a little lower than that, truthfully, anyway. So I could actually say I planned it that way. I didn't, but I don't mind it. The knee is an angle to that leg. and it's about here. So we'll get that angle in, and that is a pretty, this leg's pretty straight up and down, but the knee looks like it's out about here. All right, so we're gonna go, the back of that accordion is right here. And so the leg is gonna go here, which is probably gonna bring this knee a little lower. This angle will correct. Drawing and painting generally are a process for me. I have to speak for myself, and I can't speak for all artists, of pretty much, I don't want to say constantly, but correcting. I assume I'm right. I take action on that assumption. And then somewhere along the line, I assess that, and as to whether I'm right or wrong with that assumption. And at that point, do whatever is necessary to correct, and then keep going. So I've let the body grow. That's a tendency that I have. I'm not crazy about it, but I'm aware of it. So I'm always conscious of it whenever I draw, that I tend to start with the head now, but which is great because I left room where I could easily make that head a little bit larger, which is what I'm going to do right now. But first we'll get a little bit of the rest of the body in. The gesture looks pretty good, so I'm not displeased with that. Sock looks like it's about here, maybe a little higher. The sock a little lower. And then the foot about here. And this foot is pretty much straight. This is kind of nice because we got a little bit of a gesture. We got a little bit of an angle of that leg and foot. This foot tends to be pretty straight on. And with that, we're going to get his case. Now there's something going on in his case, and looks like it's rags or something. I'm not going to put that in, just so you guys know. So the rest of it I'm going to kind of keep pretty true to the way it is. So we're at the top of his accordion case there. It's got to be big enough to hold this thing now. So I got to make sure I get it wide enough. Bring it down. The top part of this case is here. There's a little bit of perspective involved, not a lot. This side of the case about here. And the back of the case is about here. This foot coming down. And that looks about right. Now let's recorrect his head a little bit. This space looks like I might be a little off in it. That knee might want to come up. We're just going to bring this leg up. Now let's fix the head. We have his neck. I have his head way too short. So we're going to his neck, back of his head, right here. I know some people draw the head last. I also know some people that draw the head first. I'm neither one of those, truthfully. I sometimes draw it first, sometimes draw it last. A lot of times when I'm drawing with charcoal, I'll get a ghost drawing down, and then we'll eventually, let's see, beard. That feels okay. I'm just getting back a little bit. I'm a little short in the legs, but I think I'm a little bit long at this point. Maybe not, a little bit, which this could be about here, those legs. And I don't mind lengthening. We can bring that foot down here. I was just talking to a class a couple days ago. I said, if you're ever going to make a mistake in a figure, make a mistake by making your legs or your figure the head a little too small rather than too large. And so his foot are right across from each other. So this is about here, which is going to bring the this case down about here. All right, and then we'll do whatever divisions we want to do in here. If I want to bring a little bit down in here. I'll grab a bigger brush for this, but we'll bring it down here. I like the way this, I like there's a graphic breakup of space here. The whole piece kind of reminded me a little bit of a hopper, an Edward Hopper, just in its kind of graphic breakup of space. And then we'll go over here. Not crazy about that shadow coming right in there, so I'm going to move that over here. Bring that over here. But, you know, I do like this getting lost, so maybe we'll bring it a little closer. Yeah, about there. Okay. And then a nice dark shape there. So I've spent probably 10 minutes on the drawing. Don't like to spend that long on these quick paintings. So I'm going to start with my big brush, and we're going to lay in some darks very quickly. Palette. I actually have some Van Dyke brown and some burnt umber laid out today. So I'm starting with the Van Dyke brown and a little bit of blue. So it's pretty much as dark as I can go. And I'm going to start right here. And you can see right there, it wasn't wet enough. You know how you can tell? See how dry it is? So, there we go. Take it all the way down to about here. You can wet it with terp, or you can wet it with medium. In this case, I'm wetting it with a little terp. The reason I do that, I can get it a little thinner, which means I can move it faster. And for a plein air type piece, which I approach pretty much most of these paintings that I do on Fridays like this, not that dissimilar to, and I know I've mentioned this before, than I would do if I were painting a location piece, a piece on plein air, simply because of a time frame. However, if I do want to do a more finished painting, I might go back 2 or 3 days and work basically in a 2 to 3 hour period during that amount of time. That's about the only way that I have found. Other artists may have found something different. It's the only way that I've really found that I can get kind of a finished type painting. And generally, when I say that, I mean large. I don't mean a small finished painting. I mean like a 2430, 2436, 3040 type painting. But if I do a small plein air painting, like I generally would do when I go to Europe, or when I just go outside for an afternoon or morning, basically what I'm doing then is, 12 by 16 might be the largest I might go in that case. So just giving you a little insight into that kind of stuff. So we're going to kind of unify some of these simple darks, and that'll start to give me the shape of my character. He's a neat looking guy. I kind of like the outfit, that summer outfit. It's just kind of super casual. And that's why it's this. I photographed this. When I say a long time ago, I would say, 20 years plus ago. So I don't really remember exactly where this was. There isn't anything that gives me an indication of exactly where I was taking this picture. Sometimes I remember really vividly because something happened or there's a landmark in there, but in this case, there's no dead giveaway. Okay, so we're just going to kind of block these darks in. And one of the things that I have found is start unifying as opposed to painting really piecemeal, very separate. Here's what I mean by unifying. I'm going to run the foot and the shadow together, and even the case, because I see those all deep shadows. It's one of those things that really can help. So we're going to unify all of this. Then if I have time, I will go back and start to break some of it apart. Now, just looking at it, gesture looks pretty good. Proportion looks okay. I am going to take that same dark and I'm going to move it right into his shorts because I see a deep shadow. I may change that. Deep shadow. One of the things you can do to find out if you're correct in those deep shadows is literally close one eye and squint. And that will give you, that will simplify everything. So what happens then is you're not seeing nuances of detail. And that's one way you can really help yourself to simplify. Because people will ask, well, you know, about different ways of simplifying. That's probably the best. Okay, so I've unified all of that. I'm going to put a little bit of a dark here, just kind of like that. I like the spatial breakup. It's almost like a Mondrian type of spatial breakup. So it's kind of fun. I want to make sure, this is where I might come in with a ruler and make sure I get these things at the same level. So we're going to leave that. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of background. I'm going to take my white and my palette. My palette today, I have a little bit more color laid out than I usually lay out. And it's because I laid my palette out without knowing exactly what I was going to paint. So I have titanium white. I have a little bit of Naples yellow, a little yellow ochre, little cad orange hue, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, sap green. Then I have Van Dyke brown, burnt sienna, and burnt umber. I kind of like that gray-green color back here. I want a little bit more ochre and white thrown into that color. Again, a little bit of terp, and we'll just kind of go down and we're going to block it in very quickly. The reason I'll get the background in so quick and maybe even thin is because let's say I get home and I want a beefier background for so to speak. I don't need, as long as I have the basic color and value, I don't need to have that exact background in front of me. I can be, you know, thicker with it, bolder, do some nuances of color variations with it. And you see, if I brush over this, I can still see my lines. It's one of the things I try and tell people is to paint through things. Don't always paint just up to the edge like you're laying a mosaic. Literally paint through it. And you know what I tell students is, hey man, you were probably wrong anyway. Well, I spent all this time, you know, I spent all this time getting this. Well, don't spend that much time, because chances are, unless you really go back and fix it, your drawing's probably got some flaws in it as it is. So as I go from line to shape, which is what I'm doing now, I can see more accurately whether something is and or isn't working. Little dry, so I added a little bit more terp. Not a lot, just a little bit. And I threw some more ochre into it because I kind of want these colors to not be exactly the same everywhere. I like a little bit of variation. Otherwise, it looks like just a flat, ugly wallpaper color. So we're going to kind of take this down here. And now I've got almost his silhouette. Now, I left out the hat. I might put that in, but if I don't have time, I don't have to put it in. There's also, and I think I'll take this brush to it, there's also a little, the shadow from here goes up onto this light. So I'm just going to mix a little bit of shadow color into that just by adding a little bit of one of my browns and blue back into it. Well, I picked up a little burnt sienna by accident, but I don't necessarily think that's going to be bad. And we're going to go from there. I'm going to go a little darker. Let's do it one more time. Okay. You know, when you paint fast, guess, adjust, and commit. In other words, don't sit there and remix a color 10 times and say, oh, now I finally have it. Yeah, you may finally have it, but you know, you're in a position where that light has probably changed so severely that, you know, you really aren't going to be able to get the darn thing done. So we have that. Now we're going to go in to his head. And I'm going to grab a smaller brush. What do I have here? Like a number 4. Yeah, I've got a number 4 flat. And so we're going to go in. It's a little small, a little smaller than I want. If I had a good number 8 right next to me, I'd probably grab it. An 8 feels a little bit more comfortable than a 4. But a 4 is what I have, so we're going to take my burn umber, mix it into the shadow color I was just using. And let's try his hair. A little darker maybe, huh? First time's a guess. Second time we live with it. If it's wrong, we'll adjust it later. Right about, I'm looking. I didn't draw any features in. I just trusted that I'd be able to paint it. Why spend my time drawing them in there and then having them wrong? So I'll paint them in and I can adjust them as I paint them in. So we're going to go down, get where his beard is. It's just going to be about in here. Okay. I'm just looking at the total. It looks pretty good. All right. So I'm going to go from this point to the shadow on his flesh. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lighten it just a touch, maybe with some ochre, and bring a little bit more burnt sienna in because his flesh is warmer. So it's very close to this color. It's just slightly warmer. That's about right. That's about right. Feels okay. I feel like I could probably go darker on the hair, but I'd rather be not too dark right off the bat. We're going to get that eye socket in. Front of the forehead. Top of the forehead. Front of the nose. Picked up a little bit more burnt sienna. It should start to look correct at this point. And if it's not, that's when you do your adjustments. It looks about right. Now, I'm just fortunate that this is kind of a flesh tone. It's not anywhere near as colorful as I wanted, so I'm going to put a lot more color into his flesh. But I want to take that same color and put it down here on his arm, where his arm is. Up. Down to where the elbow is. Across. Picking up a little bit of that light background, so I went back and added a little bit more dark. And the back of the hand here. Down into the fingers. The other hand, I don't see much shadow in it. I see a little bit right there. Overpaint your shadows. Okay? Paint, in other words, paint them a little bit beyond maybe where you think they might go. It's a little on his neck too. Look at that, right down there and there. A little too much, but perfectly all right. I'm going to take the same color. We're going to go find on his leg. I'm actually going to bring a little bit more burnt sienna into that. Okay. And bottom of his leg, probably a little lighter than I want it, but for right now, it's good enough. added a little too much burnt sienna, went a little too dark. So we're gonna go back. How much of that leg do I see in light? Not much, so I'm gonna paint most of it in shadow. Okay, and this leg around the kneecap, I've actually took that leg at a little bit more of a severe angle, and that doesn't bother me at all. I think it actually works fine. I've almost accentuated the gesture a little bit. A little bit on the underside of this leg. Be observant. And this goes down a little lower, right about there. So we kind of have the shadows in. I probably could darken that sock. It's darker. The actual shadow of the sock is darker. So I'm going to go back with a little bit of that Van Dyke brown in the color I was just using, and we're going to put the kind of the shadow of that sock in. We already have this shadow in kind of here. So I've kind of got the basic shadows in. I'm going to get the shadow on his shirt, which is similar to this value. So a lot of times it's really nice when you can look at certain areas of your painting and you say, geez, if I had that color again, I could use that color because it's almost that color. This might be okay. No, it's too dark. That's why I said might be. Not way dark, just a little too dark. That's probably better right there. Again, I'd rather paint too much than too little. Because you need to go back and refine and finish anyway. So why not mess up by going a little overboard at this particular point? There we go. And down. And it's a little warmer, but right down. So I just throw a little bit of more burnt sienna into it right down here. Down edge of his knee. Okay. And while I've got that color, if I add just a little bit of blue to it, not much, just a little bit, I can actually paint this part of the accordion. And the accordion is more architectural. So I can use very straight, clean strokes as opposed to what I might do. Also, it goes a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take some Naples yellow, throw a little Naples into that color I was just using. And we're going to paint, no, I want to go a little, maybe ochre this time, huh? So it's got a little more color. No, I want to go lighter. Well, I violated my own theory. Usually I do one guess and do it. So here's my third, and that's it. Okay, that's going to be fine. And if it isn't going to be fine, I'll make it work later. All right, now the bottom gets a lot of warm reflected light. So I can actually take the color I was just using, throw, say, some burnt sienna back into it. Let me test this. Oh, a little darker. That's going to be close. It's probably going to throw some umber back into that color. It's a warm brown and it'll work well. And that way I can put more. Yeah, this is about right. Okay. And on the keyboard side, it gets a little darker. So again, we're just building. So we're going to go cast shadow right down here. Oh, that's about right. See, this time I didn't waste time. I got it right the first try. It's a little cooler, however. I can add just a touch of blue to that and make it work even better. Here we go. There we go. That's pretty good right there. So we've got the variations in there. Now, if I want to, I can take that same dark that I'm just using right here, add a little bit of dark snap up, right up in that region, right, just to amplify that a little bit further. Okay. Overall, it's kind of shaping up. There is a shadow side, so I'm going to take same color as just using, add a little blue to it, and we're going to hit right here. Okay. Now, let's start on some of the lights. Again, I'm going to look at my time frame. Okay, but just about 30 minutes into it. And I'm close to where I'd like to be. I'm going to stay with the same brush. I feel like I want to go to a smaller brush, but I'm staying with this brush for a little bit, okay? So I'm going to take cat orange hue. I'm going to take yellow ochre. And I'm going to start really strong on his flesh tone. Probably much stronger than it'll look. But let's, geez, you know, I could go more red than that even. This is probably pretty close to what I want. Yeah, right about there. So I'm gonna take a little bit of the brown and a little alizarin crimson. I mean, not alizarin crimson. We're gonna put that part of his forehead in because it's a little darker. As it faces upward, it gets a little bit more light. As it hits his brow line, as it always does in every individual, you get a flavor of light right here. Okay. On the nose, I'm going to take a smaller brush, and I'm going down to this number 2, and I'm going to heat that color up. I'm going to throw some alizarin crimson into it because we're going to go warmer on the nose. I always go warmer on the nose. It's got a nice little cast to it. A little warmer on the cheek. I'm going to go even warmer as it goes down in, as it begins to go transition from that tone down into the shadow of his cheek. We're going to get it a little bit redder and darker. All right? These little pieces of paint we're putting down right now. Nothing more. Go back. Start in here. Leave it alone. It's working. So I'm talking to myself when you hear me say, I'm not talking to you. Leave it alone means me. Leave it alone. And you know what? If you guys weren't here, I'd probably still be. I do say that a lot. People have heard me in classes say, oh, leave it alone. And sometimes they think I'm talking to them, and where I'm maybe over working on a piece of my own, talking to myself. So I like the chunkiness, so I'm very pleased with the way that part of it's working. The ear is always warmer. So I use a little bit more of the alizarin crimson in the red here. It's casting a shadow right here, so we want to get that in. Okay, then we're going to leave it alone. There I go again. And I'm going to go into the white of the t-shirt. I can probably do it with this brush because not much of it showing. So I'm going to take my white, clean the brush a little bit. I'm going to take Naples. Clean the brush a little bit from the flesh tone. And we're going to start right here. And a little piece of light back here. And a little on the back side of his neck. His t-shirt goes up and around. Right there. A little bit more. Do it one more time. Okay. Now, that's pretty much all the t-shirt we see. But you know, I do see something I didn't put in. This happens from time to time. And that is, I got the hand in, but there's an arm. My God, there's an arm attached to that hand. right here. And this is probably up a little too high. It is. I can actually see it is. So, which fine, because like I said, you're not going to hit everything exactly the way you want it when you first try it. You're going to get hopefully close. So I'm going to stay with this little brush with the t-shirt. I see a little piece of light happening right there, going behind his arm, and then working its way up. And also working its way down. And then there's a sleeve down below, which is darker. So same brush, just mixed a little bit of the Van Dyke brown into it. And we're going to go down in here. It should be similar to the flesh tone. That's about right. Okay. Feel okay about it. Let's go back to my number 4 that I was using. And I'm going to go back to a dark Van Dyke brown and ultramarine blue. Maybe a little burnt umber into it to warm it up a little bit. But we're going to come up a little bit here. A little bit there. Okay. I'm going to paint the lights on his leg, not quite as bright, but close to it as his face. About there. First part up, over, I need a little bit of medium in that, and down. I'm going to bring, I have a little bit of my linseed oil here, combination linseed and solvent-free gel liquid. So it's not one or the other. And we're going to go indicate it around and work that in so it kind of blends down. You see it just lift up on your brush, it'll do the blend for you. Now you can spend much more time blend, you can find cools in there, but for all intents and purposes, when we're working this quickly, you're not going to get all that. You're just going to, you're going to get the essence, which is what you get pretty much when you plein air. You don't get every little nuance. Now the other leg, I'm going to bring a little burnt sienna into that color. The other leg tends to look a little darker. It's facing away from the sun, so this part right here is going to be not quite as bright. We soften that edge. And the top of it is just a little lighter, so I can actually throw a little ochre into that. I think I went a little too light. So I brought some more, whoa, I went too red. I brought some alizarin crimson. So we're going to bring that knee down from right about there. And then we're going to get a nice softness. So it blends. Now let's do the hands. So we go from one light flesh tone area to another. And that's going to go from here, the wrist, down to the knuckles. And it's going to soften just a little bit. And then it's going to go down into the fingers, which are going to go lighter, but we'll put those in later. Right now we'll get them in this color. And same with the other hand. We'll put them in this color to start with and add the light later. Okay, so we kind of have the guy laid in, kind of. We still need to lay in more of the accordion, more of the background, which, let's do it. Let's get a little bit on his pants, by the way. I caught that when I was doing it, so I mixed up kind of the dark color, and it's just a little shadow from his shorts, right there. And there. Now, while I've got this background color here, I'm going to reshape that leg right at that point. Let's get that sock in there while we're in that point. So I just took the Van Dyke and I threw some Naples and maybe some ochre. It has a subtle greenish cast to it. I think I'm okay here. I might be too dark. No, I think I'm right. I think I could throw more ochre. It's probably a little on the cool side. It just needs a little more ochre thrown into it, but it's not terrible, so I'm going to leave it a little on this sock. Okay, so started to make sense. Let's take the Naples, or excuse me, the, what the hell color is that? Yeah, it is Naples. And so we're going to take Naples, kind of that same color I was just using, and we're going to add a little bit of light on this piece of his shorts right there. They're kind of khaki colored. I could make them any I want to, but the khaki, the thing I like about the khaki color is it doesn't overdo any other part of it. Now, as it goes down, it's catching a little bit more light. That light is, bam, hitting that way. So it's catching a little bit more light, so I could take a little bit more Naples to that same color and put it right there. It's a little overdone, but not terrible. So we're going to just come back, clean it up a little bit with a shadow. Okay. Now let's get some light on the accordion. Okay. That's closest to white that we have. So I'm going to take white, clean my brush pretty good, same number 4, white and Naples. The Naples warms the white up, makes it feel like sunlight. And we're going to go right here to begin with. And it's got a little bit of interruption. Not really sure what that is, but it's there. I'm not an accordion player. I know you guys all thought I was an accordion player because of I'm not even an accordion nut. Like Cajun music. It's got accordion. Let's bring it down. I'm going to reshape this bottom area, bringing that down a little further. Same with that. The middle of it, where the the collapsible part, whatever you have to call that, is right in that one spot. So it's slightly darker. This is an area you just don't want to overpick. It can really look like you just overfuss the whole damn thing if you do. So you really want kind of a nice cleanliness to it all. Simplification. So now we're going to do the in-between part. Now again, I don't know what that's called. Got a little piece of light flickering right there. Oh, with the same color, it's probably a little different. It has a touch of blue in it, so I'm just add a little white, just a touch of blue to that same color. When I say a touch, my brush just barely picked up a little bit. It's just slightly cooler. And we're going to do this. Slow, because I want to be somewhat accurate. And then it's going to diminish as it goes down here. Go behind that pant leg. Okay, and the top part right here, that continuity, so it's got to feel like it goes behind the hand and come out on the other side. we'll put the keys in as I get to that point. Okay, so I'm going to take the same color that I was using. I'm going to bring a little bit of probably umber, but maybe Van Dyke because it's a colder brown. And it's probably went a little too dark because I definitely want it darker. Let me test it. It's not too bad. Maybe some ochre or something in it. It's a little on the cold side. Let's try it one more time. I went too. Let's try one. Okay. Let's start here. And that's pretty good. We want to make sure I keep the width of that approximately correct. And then there's a diamond kind of pattern in the middle, which tends to be a little on the ochre side. So I'm going to throw a little ochre into that and maybe a touch of umber. And let's try it. Nope, not dark enough. More umber. I got to remember I'm painting into, yeah, that's probably better. I'm going to even throw more ochre into that color. There we go. Let's go. Yeah, that feels a little better. And down and over. Now, each time I'm putting a stroke down, I'm picking up that color that's underneath. So I'm lightening that color. So I keep having to go back and readjust the mixture on my palette. Keep that in mind. So with that same color, maybe a little more ochre into it this time. That's how I see it. And I see this keyboard, which is right in here. And I want to paint a little polka dots because I know that's what most people do. They see it all as little buttons, which it is, but that isn't how we see it when we first look at it. So if you're doing an impression of it, you're painting the movement, the overall value and color that you see, not the individual buttons that you might think of. There. And there. And that works pretty well. And now I'm going to take that same color, I'm going to gray it down with some blue and add a little white to it, and we're going to get a little bit of information right here. Too dark. More white. All right, that's better. So it feels like I'm adding detailed information. I'm just adding tones. Okay, and there's a little bit of a darkness. I don't know what it is, but it's a little dark piece. If I didn't put it in, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I'm going to put it in because I see it. And it's right here. And then this, I want it a little bit more dark. Okay, and we're going to put a little more reflective light into that too, I think. I think I'm just going to take some burnt umber and just hit a little bit stronger on the transition before it goes into light. Just punctuates that a little bit. Now, I want to go back on this area right in here. And we want to put those keys in. And those are kind of ochre and umber. And they're kind of warm, so I'm going to throw a little bit of burnt umber is warm. Burnt umber and ochre may do it. I may need to kick a little burnt sienna into it, but this is where I think I'm going to start, right about here. Okay, I am going to throw a little of the orange and ochre back into it. And I'm going to bring a little medium because I know I'm going to paint a lot of, and in the lights, it's going to be a little lighter, so it's going to go here. and then another one here. There's 3 of them. And then this is the tricky part where they go into shadow. And then we get little pieces of them. Here, here. Sticking out. And we get 2, then we get 3. 1. We don't have to exact amount. And then we get 2. Unless we get an accordion aficionado looking at this piece. They're not going to know whether they have the right number in or not. Okay, now those go into shadow. So we're going to take that same color. I'm just going to add probably umber, a little Van Dyke brown to that same color. Still want them to stay hot, so I'm going to throw a little orange into that. So I've darkened the exact color. And what we're going to do is we're going to make them go into shadow. That's pretty good, I think. We'll know when we get into this part. Now I want to go a little darker. A little bit darker. Let's try it again. Yeah, there we go. So that feels like those are in shadow. I can kind of clean this up a little bit, this edge. Now, when you start painting over so much paint and you use the pressure that I just used, you're disturbing the paint and you're actually picking up that color. Okay, so that feels pretty good. So now we want to go back to a little bit of refining. So what do I got? I got about 30 minutes, I think, left, maybe even less. So first thing I'm going to do, I think, is go back with that orange, and I'm going to bring a little bit more reflected light right here. Oh, want some ochre into it too. It's almost a flesh tone. Okay, so we throw a little reflected light into it. Now, before I go any further, let's get the interior of this, some of this other stuff, and then we're going to go back and really try and nail that figure. Because that's where our emphasis is. But if I don't get this other stuff done, it'll kind of feel incomplete. So I do want to make sure I get these other areas done. So first thing, I went back with this brush, my big brush. Actually, I'm going to use my big old rosemary number, was it 10? I think this is better. And I'm going to take my white, and I'm going to take, I want a very gray color. So I took a little blue and a little umber together along with the white. And we're going to go right up. I want a lighter still. So I could throw white, or I could throw Naples yellow into it. And I threw some of both. And that's pretty good right there. Added more terp because I want to be able to make a long stroke that works. There, and then let's go. And we want to follow that from there to here. So there's a couple ways of doing this. I want to show you. One of the ways is to take a brush and say it's going to be how much, it's going to be that much higher than the edge. So I want it that much higher than the edge. So I want it up here, which it looks, and then down around the knee, right about here, right? And this is going to move its way over here before it goes into shadow. Okay, and then we're going to get this shadow right in here, which is darker, a little cooler and darker. It's going to be about in here. That's about right. And this is a tarp. I don't know if I'm gonna make it like a tarp. I want to make it a straight, so it doesn't feel like it's a tarp. It feels like more like just a wall. Bigger brush you can do it with, the better. It just makes your life easier. Goes right down to this point. And then that goes into shadow. So I can pick up any one of my brushes, pull that back into shadow, meaning the blue, the umber. The shadow's going to go down here, over there, down there, over here. Well, I'm going to apologize for an interruption that we had, so hopefully we'll be able to splice these two things together and get it working. We'll try and finish this up. I tried to lay off everything until we got you back, so I'm going to put a little bit of a feeling of this post. I mixed up a little bit of a blue, brown, white, and kind of hid this so it's in shadow, but it's there. It goes down and then almost dissipates as it goes down. But it just adds that little snap of something, okay? So one of the things that I want to do is start to separate a little bit of that cast shadow. So I'm going to push a little bit of my brown, blue, and white, and we'll get it, that's about right. Now that'll show off, and the same thing is going to happen here, under the chair, right about here. I pronounced it maybe a little bit more than I needed to, but we'll get it there. So I don't know what that interruption was from. We just, all of a sudden, everything just quit. And so I kind of stopped and walked away, and we got Anna up here to help me with it. We got it hopefully back up and running. And we'll go back behind that leg. Maybe a little darker here because it starts to get less, it's just more interruptions of light back in here. It's almost the same value. I want to get enough of this done so we can go back and finish up the figure, because that's what we're going to really spend the time on right at the end, because he's laid in relatively decent. In other words, I'm not totally dissatisfied. We're going to put a little piece of the chair that we see right about here. A little piece of it. And then we get some of the dark, and we get the legs. We get this leg. We got a leg there. We're going to lay that foot in. I'm going to take some of this nice dark, and I'm going to darken it, the shadow, just by adding a little bit more of that Van Dyke brown to it. And we're going to bring it up onto this leg and make it a little darker on this leg than it is on the other leg. A little darker still. There we go. Soften it. I don't want that edge to be too hard. That it feels better. I feel more comfortable with it. Okay, so we're going to take the dark, we're going to amplify the shadow on this leg. And I want to lose this into shadow. Just completely lose the part of that leg into shadow. Get a little bit of it. Then that's the knee. And right about below the knee, we start to get a little bit, and it starts to define that calf just a little bit. Up here, we same color, just blend a little bit more. Okay. I want to get the interior of the what do you call it, case? What do you call that damn thing? There we go. That's accordion. That's what I call it. So we're going to take blue and Naples and white. The reason I'm not just taking blue and white, it just gets the ultramarine. It is closer to a royal type of a blue like that, but I want to temper it down with just, I never want a color that's almost an out of the tube color with white. Occasionally it'll work. This is actually pretty good. Probably throw a little medium into it. And I think I will, just because I like the dry characteristic, but I'm just having to work too hard to get it to lay down. Okay, so we're gonna go there. And we're gonna go a little darker as it goes, because I'm not gonna put the I'm not gonna put all that garbage. So we're gonna go a little darker as it goes down in, and then if I have to, I'll define that edge a little bit just to get it to work. Okay, and when I told you I was going to find the edge, so let me explain that real quickly. I'm going to take any one of my brushes. This just happens to be a number 2. I'm going to mix up kind of a neutral, slight warm with a little bit of yellow. I'm going to use this. We're going to hit it right about, that's pretty good actually, color-wise, right about here. Okay, that gives me an interior, gives me an edge. There's also stuff, latches. So we're going to put one right about here. I don't like that brush. I'm going to grab my number 4. It's a little picky of a brush. It's just ochre brown. We're going to put it right in here. Put one there. And we'll put one about there. And then where the handle goes, it's going to be right there. And if I want to make that a little bit bigger, and that one a little bit bigger, and then use the same color just to have a little bit of highlightation on the edge of that handle. Nope, not light enough. That's better. We see it there, and a little bit here. Okay, so we've indicated a little touch of the handle, and obviously this edge is going to go back in space, probably about like this, and probably a little bit on the other side too. Looks like it's a little stronger over there. I see a little bit of a, well, that is the direction of the light's coming from over here, so I get a little bit of a punch right there, and we'll just leave it at that for right now. I don't want to dwell, even though there is texture in there, I don't want to play too much of a game with trying to hit that exact textural quality. I'm looking for my one brush. Here it is. And so I can actually add a little bit of just that, so it isn't quite so flat. A little bit of the ground plane, and then we'll go back into this guy. Ground plane is going to be pretty much white, umber, umber, more umber, and a little bit of blue mixed into that. That's a little darker than I want and a little cooler, so I throw a little burnt sienna and white back into that, and we're going to live with that, okay? So we're going to go that way, down there. reshape the shoe a little bit. There's a shadow. We'll get that shadow in a second. I just want to get, I'm going to destroy part of the shadow before I put it back, just so you guys know. Which is not unusual. Sometimes you have to destroy something and then go back and add it back in later. So this is going to go to his heel, right about here. And then his foot is going to be about here. And let's grab more orange. I grabbed a little umber. I grabbed a little Naples, a little blue, a little more Naples, and we're pretty close. Again, I never worry if I'm exactly right on that color. I like that to be a little bit varied. So we're going to show the bottom of that. I'm going to make it warmer on that side since the light's coming from there. How did I do that? I threw a little orange and ochre into that same color I was just using. A little bit in here. Okay, there is something I noticed, a little bit of a white edge. I kind of like that. It gives a little bit of a, so I'm going to throw a little ochre and white into kind of some of the grays I already have mixed on my palette. And we're going to bring this so I have it at the same level everywhere. It's right about there, feels right. So we're going to do more white. I can see I want it dark, lighter than the ground plane. There. And behind a sock. Oh, nice little touch. Kind of like that. That helped. Gives me that little bit of a punch there towards the bottom. Okay. A little bit into him, and then we'll finish on the shoes. And, oh, I know one thing I want to get. We want to go right between these two. So, oh, that's about it. Right in the middle, right? That feels good. There's a little bit of a light edge on that, which I'll show you what we do. We take white, mix it into the Naples, get a lot of medium in it. So it's real light. And I don't want to say gooey, but we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to put a little edge, a little light edge on the top, right there, and maybe even a little bit right there. And I can see a light edge right. Boy, these are the kind of things that I do generally later. Okay, so let's go into this guy a little bit, okay, so we can make him work. We're gonna give a little bit more depth to the shadow of his hair, much darker now. And that's why I didn't want to go too dark right off the bat. And we're gonna start here. Not dark, darker still. Okay. I put my finger down, and I got a little fingerprint there. A little dark edge on his hair here. I'm using a little umber and a little bit of the Van Dyke brown in these areas. We're going to go right down onto his here, a little bit back behind. So we push that. I'm going to take that same dark, add a little blue to it, and we're going to get the snap of his wristwatch in there. Now let's go back into his flesh a little bit, okay? First on the forehead, we're going to go a little lighter, a little more ochre. I always like to add a little cool whenever I paint the forehead. I don't know why. I just find it works, particularly on male figures. Nope, not enough. It's because I need more medium, because that paint is so wet. And this is a bristle brush. If I had a sable, it would lay on top easier. That was cooler. Maybe I do have a sable. Let's see. I think I do. Where is that? Right here. There's a sable. Let's see if we can get this to work. Lighter right there. Okay. And right below the temple on the top of the cheek, cooler. Right there, a little snap. Behind the ear. Right. So hopefully you can begin to see, I'm getting a little bit of gradation going on, a little bit of color change and gradation. And then we're going to do the fingers, and I mentioned that earlier, quite a bit lighter. So it's basically the flesh tone lightened and maybe even slightly cooled. So I'm going to clean my finger, and from the knuckles on down, that's too light. So add a little bit more of the flesh tone back into it. There we go. 1, 2. Excuse me. Back on this hand, which is 1. You're just indicating the light on the top planes. Get rid of that. That hand doesn't look good. I can see why right away. I need to get the dark between those fingers right there. And I picked up a nice dark warm, because that's how I see it. That's helping. And I'm going to have to lighten that finger a little bit. There, a little bit here. It's a little cold, but it's the right value. A little bit under the thumb. All the way up to where the knuckles start, which is about there. And now I can brighten those fingers again if I want to. These come, that finger. Okay, that makes a little more sense. Now I don't have time to dwell on it, but I want to go back into the leg because he has a little bit of light on top of the shorts right here. And we'll soften it. And the same here. Okay. And as it comes down, I think this is probably the light of the flesh that probably hadn't seen a lot of sunlight. But it's kind of a nice little area. I see it there. Then up on the knee, gets a little lighter. Structural change. Always will get, strong structure will always get a lot of value variation. So we hit that on the other knee, even brighter. And it starts about here. I have to use this sable because it's about the only way I can get paint to sit on top now, because it's so wet underneath. I want to hit the top of that hand one more time right there. Down on the calf, a little lighter right here. Down right at the ankle. Whoa, got one really cold on me. I think I got a little blue mixed in. Didn't mean to. I go up the ankle up. And a little bit on the other leg. Right. Too light, but the idea is right. So I'm going to go with a whiter color, more white, and we're going to hit the strong light on the knees a little bit stronger, because the knees tended to, they always will. Okay, as I stand, I just kind of lean back and it worked fine. I messed this hand up a little bit ago, so I'm going to fix that. That's working. Okay, I'm going to take my flesh tone and we're going to bring it right down, mix it into that color. It's one of the advantages of having a nice color underneath is you can blend it just by literally stroking it 2 or 3 times. Okay, that's working. Let's go back into his little bit in his face. He's got a little gray in his beard. Where are we at? I got just about 6 minutes, it looks. No, I got probably more than that because we were interrupted. So I don't know what I'm rushing for. It's going to be less than 90 minutes, huh? Just simply because of the interruption. And I'm just hoping that Scott can take these 2 segments, put them together. We're going to go into his shoes a little bit. Oh, you know what I don't like is that area right there. Don't like it at all. Let's darken it. Let's turn it back into shadow. Okay. And while I'm doing that, let's add the other shadows that I said I was going to need to add. One is right here. And one goes from here down to his heel. So it goes from here to there. And there's another one that goes from this. Oh, I see. I just saw something. I like that. Okay, I'll show you in a second. Talking to myself. I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to get that foot back in there the way that I think it should be. Then there's a leg that's going to come down right about. Let's get the heel of that the leg, a little on the sock, and top of the shoe. Just correcting. That's what we're doing at this point. But let me explain what I was all jacked up about. When it goes from here down onto the plane of the ground, it lightens up a little bit. I didn't see that earlier. And I have an advantage that it's another way to show a little bit of a change. So I can take and lighten. Not a lot. Stroke over it 2 or 3 times and pull it right back into the shadow range. It just adds a little something, okay? Let's see, where is it? At this point, we have the leg come down to about here. Over here, it's about in here. But then there's a light on that leg. That's where we need, you don't have to use a straight edge. I mean, I never have to use a straight edge, but I'm lazy. So I'm going to take almost the color of the light flesh tone on the leg. And I'm going to have a little medium in it. And we're going to go right from here. Give me the angle I want. And we're going to take it right down. To there. Okay? and that gives him that part of the leg. And we'll do this one, which is much smaller. It's right about so that actually helped. Now this, I kind of messed this up, so we'll just kind of fix that. I could also make this transparent through it, but one of the things that's really kind of cool, I love to do this kind of stuff, I'll show you right now, is I did this earlier with this light, but there's also a secondary light right about here, and it's right about there, just a little indication. Don't mean to slide that thing so much there, but as that goes into shadow, we still see it. You don't have to. You can make it perfectly opaque, dark shadow. This is just something I like to do. So I can take that same, and we can bring it into the shadow area right at that point. And now it's in shadow. Pretty good. I don't mind that at all. Now, every time you put this down, you will probably mess up a little bit. All right. Also, I want to put the strap over the hand, which is pretty white. So, and that comes about yay. There's a strap over that arm. It's a little darker. And it goes so give a little bit, not much, just a little bit, give a little bit of structure. Right there. I could do a little bit of punch. We really don't see, we get a little bit of, oh, nope. Let's try it again. Don't like that, get a little warmer, let's see. And that's kind of what that is at the bottom, I think. Now, if I wanted to and had time, I would take my liner with white, a lot of medium, a little bit of a straight edge, but I'm not going to use it. We're just going to kind of indicate like this. So you make it feel, even though you haven't done a lot. Now I can push back into that head a little bit. And we're going to go push some of the darks a little bit more now. And then we'll put his glasses on, because I kind of like those. I think they add something. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is add a little, lighten up just a little bit, clean my finger, because I'm going to put my finger down. I'm going to look where those glasses sit, right about here. And get a little bit of a pull right there, right? Messed his neck up a little bit, but we'll take care of that in a second. On the light side, on the other side, we get two areas. One area is pretty close to the basic flesh tone. And that area is probably reflecting back into the glasses, and it's right about there. All right. And then as it goes up towards his ear, the piece goes from here and then disappears into his hair. And voila, without doing a ton of work, you've given the feeling of the glasses. So I'm going to go into that ear a little bit. I'm going to go a little lighter right here. I'm using this little liner as a little sable. So that's working. I sat back. I'm actually sitting today for the first time. I haven't sat for a long time and painted. But because I was doing a figure and I was going to be a little bit more, try and concentrate a little bit more, I thought, well, I'll sit down for a change. And I'm getting old. Yeah, that's working. Except now, while I've got this wonderful small brush, I can be a little bit more careful with the fingers. And because I was doing it with a big brush, and I normally would do it with a big brush and then switch down to a small brush if I mess up. I was trying to do large brush first. Doesn't work. Small brush. Let's see. Oh, I see something I can add that I missed on his neck, and we'll do that right now. And that is right. It's not a real bright color, but it's not dark. It's right about here. And it separates his neck from his beard. And that worked. Okay, pretty good in here. I'm looking, now I'm going to scour and see if there's anything that I think I can do to make it jump, make it a little better, okay? One thing, I think I'm going to add a little bit of that wall over there. Just a touch. So I went back to my white, and we'll take a little blue and ochre like I did initially, but maybe not quite as strong. And we're going to go right here. Just because I want to. A little spatial breakup. And then if I want to, I can take and do a little bit of that light that occurs from here and bring it straight on over to here. Oh, I don't know what I was thinking there. That's where you just take your other brush. And I'm going to stand back because I think I'm close to done. Yeah, I think I'm pretty close to complete. There's things that I do and do not like, and there always will be. And some of them are just around the legs and a little bit more punch that I think I could give to those legs. A little more snap as far as some of the darks go. A lot of times the large brush is the best way to do that kind of stuff. But pretty much there you kind of have it. That's pretty much my painting of my accordion player in wherever, because I'm not even sure where it is, but you get the feeling. And so for a quickie, you know, probably under 90 because I kind of lost track of time simply due to a little bit of interruption. Hope the interruption didn't mess you guys up or not. Thank you for watching. Next week we'll do something a little different. Okay? Thank you all, and good painting.